There is a whole microscopic world living inside your body. And the choices we make, how we eat, how we live, not only impact us, but also these tiny organisms. And the vice versa is true. They impact us. In fact, there's growing evidence that these microorganisms that inhabit your gut, they have huge implications for your health and well-being. Which is why today I'm doing a deep dive into what is your gut microbiome and how does it impact you. I think a great place to start is just with the word biome, because what the heck does that mean? Like your gut microbiome? All this means is that there's like a ecosystem in your gut. There's inhabitants, those are the microorganisms, and we're looking at how they interact with the environment, which is your gut. So when we say your gut microbiome, we're just talking about all the microorganisms that are living in your large intestine, or specifically in your gut. There's actually several areas of our body, not just our digestive tract, our gut, where we have these microorganisms living. So in our mouth, for example, we have an oral microbiome. On our skin, we have microorganisms living. But what I want to talk about today is just the gut microbiome, because what we've seen in the past couple of years is that it's really important what these bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungi, what are they doing in our gut and how is this impacting our health? And what's quite interesting is your gut microbiome, it's unique to you. No one has the same gut microbiome as you, so it's actually sort of like a fingerprint, right? It's yours. You first develop your unique microbiome actually very early on in your life, during birth or while your mother is breastfeeding you. This is when you acquire your original microbiome. But as you grow older and you're living and some of the choices you make, as well as, the environment around you, your microbiome can change for good or bad. It can be healthier changes or unhealthy changes. So you have the ability to impact the composition of your gut microbiome. At this point, I hope I at least got you hooked on just how interesting this topic of the gut microbiome is. But maybe you're still wondering, why is this important for me to know? Why are you even telling me this? The reason is, in the past decade or so, there's just been so much research and so many studies that have proven time and time again just how important this microbial ecosystem is to the development of diseases, our overall health and well-being. A well-regulated gut microbiome is something that most people will take absolutely for granted, of course, until it's gone. It's really easy to overlook this symbiotic relationship we have with these trillions of tiny microorganisms until things start going wrong. What I mean is we have this sort of deal with these microorganisms that we provide them shelter and food, and in return, they serve certain functions in our body and produce certain nutrients we couldn't do for ourselves. Of course, this is for a healthy gut microbiome, because what can happen, for example, if you take antibiotics, if you have a bad diet, if you don't live in a healthy environment, is you can change this gut microbiome for the worse. You can dysregulate it or sort of throw it out of balance. And this is called dysbiosis. Basically, all this means is you let the bad microorganisms or pathogenic, harmful microorganisms take over your gut. They sort of knock away or get rid of those beneficial bacteria. They change the composition of your gut, and this can leave you much more vulnerable to disease and infection. But let's assume you have a healthy gut microbiome. How do these microorganisms benefit you? Well, they have so many different functions, and today I'm going to show you how they interact with a lot of different systems in your body, including the digestive system, the immune system, endocrine system, and more. I think the best place to start is probably the digestive system, just because there's been so much research in the past years really laying out nicely how your gut microbiome impacts you. Let me ask you a question. Are you one of the many people that are trying to get more fiber in your diet? And do you know why you want to eat something like fiber? Because actually us humans, we can't digest fiber on our own. What you're doing if you eat fiber is you're actually feeding the microorganisms in your gut. Because what happens when we eat something like complex carbohydrates or fiber is it actually goes through our mouth, our stomach, it goes through part of our digestive tract totally intact because we can't digest it. So what happens is this fiber makes it all the way to the microorganisms in our gut. And these microorganisms, they can eat up that fiber and make other useful nutrients for us. One useful product the microorganisms can make is called short-chain fatty acids. And this product, we know our cells use it as a form of energy, and also these short-chain fatty acids help digest other nutrients. There's also growing evidence that these molecules help regulate our blood glucose response and even might have a role in helping us maintain a healthy weight. A second big way that the microorganisms in our digestive tract really help us out is many of the bacteria here living in your gut. They possess the enzymes to make several important vitamins, including vitamins B1, B9, B12, and vitamin K. So we use these microorganisms to help us get these very vital micronutrients in our body. And one last key role I'll just mention quickly is that these microorganisms, they also help recycle and digest bile. So bile comes from our liver and goes into our intestines to help digest fats so we can get those nutrients. But what the microorganisms do is they help us recycle the bile, get it back to the liver. And if this didn't happen, we would actually see an accumulation of bile, and that would lead to an accumulation of cholesterol. So not good. Next, let's talk about your immune system. Now, you might be surprised to learn that your gut is actually your biggest immune system organ. If you can believe it, about 80% of your immune cells are located in your gut. And you'll see that having these healthy, beneficial microorganisms located here in the gut, this is absolutely critical to good immune health. First off, having your gut colonized by these good bacteria, these healthy bacteria, it actually makes it very difficult for any pathogenic or harmful bacteria to sort of come in and take their place, right? Because they're directly competing with your gut, which is already full of these good organisms living there. These microorganisms also produce some helpful nutrients for the immune system. Remember those short-chain fatty acids? These have also been seen to help the gut be a good barrier, like make sure those cells are linked really tightly so no toxins can get through, no harmful bacteria could get through. It makes like a really good barrier. And one area of current research that I think is just super interesting right now is people are looking at how your gut microbiome can help prevent the development of different autoimmune diseases. Next is the nervous system, and I've been reading so many studies on how your gut impacts your nervous system, because what scientists have somewhat recently discovered is what's called the brain-gut axis, and how your gut actually communicates with your brain. These communications or signals are basically sent through a system of nerves, neurons, or neurotransmitters that originate from your gut and travel up to your brain. And what we've seen is that certain bacteria in the gut, they can actually directly interact with the gut-brain axis because they produce a stimulant like serotonin. There's definitely a lot we still have to learn about how our gut talks to our brain, but this has spurred a lot of research looking into can our gut impact nerve pain, the development of neurological disorders, or even mood disorders. The endocrine system. So this is your glands and tissues that release certain hormones to regulate things like your metabolism, your blood sugar levels, and even how hungry you are. What we are learning now is that some of the gut microorganisms can actually communicate through our gut lining with endocrine cells. And what scientists and researchers are particularly interested in understanding is how this might impact metabolic diseases developing in humans. So that's like obesity or type 2 diabetes. And if you're interested, I have a whole nother video that explains how certain microorganisms in your gut can actually lower cholesterol levels. So there's sort of mounting evidence that some microorganisms at least are able to communicate with our endocrine system. That being said, this is still a very hot spot for research. A lot of studies are going on as we're talking. If you enjoyed this video, next I have to recommend you check out another video where I talk about how many microorganisms in your gut can elevate your athletic performance.